As we have said, Catholics around the globe will celebrate the beatification of Pope John Paul II as he comes one step closer to sainthood. Noted Catholic author George Wiegel has firsthand knowledge about this man of heroic virtue, beloved by so many. He was his biographer and friend. Wiegel visited Springfield's Legatus chapter recently to discuss his latest book on the late pontiff. Our own Terry Burgett had the opportunity to sit down with him and discuss the life of Pope John Paul II.
You may recognize him from his frequent guest appearances on television and radio, or as Vatican analyst for NBC News. His weekly column, The Catholic Difference, is syndicated to 60 newspapers throughout the United States. Catholic theologian George Wiegel has authored more than 20 books. His best-known Witness to Hope, the biography of Pope John Paul II, was published to international acclaim in 1999 and has been printed in 14 languages. Last fall, Wiegel released his second book on the late Pope, a sequel to the bestseller, entitled The End and the Beginning, Pope John Paul II, The Victory of Freedom, The Last Years, The Legacy. Reel to Reel had the chance to sit down with Wiegel during his visit to Springfield.
I decided to write Witness to Hope in 1995 because I thought that there was no reliable, comprehensive biography of John Paul II, and I thought I could do that. The idea then was to get a book out prior to the Jubilee year of 2000. And since the Pope lived till 2005, there was a gap that had to be filled. And that is the gap that's filled with this new book, The End and the Beginning, which is both a sequel to Witness to Hope and a deepening of my analysis of John Paul II.
As a biographer, you really have to get close to the individual that you are writing about. How did getting to know Pope John Paul II influence your worldview politically and in general?
He had a remarkable capacity to see through walls and around corners. And I suppose what I've learned from him is never to prematurely close off options in any given situation. The other large thing, obviously, one takes away from John Paul II in terms of a way of thinking about the world or thinking about history is his profound conviction that what counts in driving history over the long term is not politics or economics, it's culture. And at the heart of culture, like at the beginning of the word culture, is cult, or religion, or what people worship, cherish, and honor.
The latest biography is divided into 3 parts. First, Wiegel delves into John Paul II's 40-year struggle against communism, revealing documents that were, at one time, considered classified and top secret. The new evidence further proves the late pontiff's real role in the collapse of European communism.
Anyone who paid serious attention to the way communist governments dealt with the Catholic Church from the Second World War on knew that there was a lot of bad stuff going on. The documents that I obtained 3 or 4 years ago and that are brought to public light in the English-speaking world for the first time in this new book, The End and the Beginning, I think are surprising in that they illustrate the magnitude of this effort, the relentlessness of it, and the viciousness of it. I mean, this was a very, very serious business.
The second part of the book recounts the last years of the pontiff, which Wiegel describes as full of drama. He covers the Great Jubilee, the Pope's pilgrimage to the Holy Land, the scandals of clerical abuse in the Church, as well as the terrorist attacks of September 11th. Do you think Pope John Paul II saw militant Islam as the next great challenge for the Catholic Church since the Cold War?
I think what he saw was another great challenge, which is every bit as threatening, if in a different way, than the challenge of radical Islam. And that is the challenge of aggressive secularism. A secularism that in Europe and in some parts of America wants to confine religious conviction to a private matter with no public expression or implications.
The book includes intimate glimpses of the man, moments of humor and moments of darkness, including at least one dark night of the soul. Wiegel describes the Pope's final months as his last and perhaps most impressive encyclical. How are we as Catholics witnessing the end of an era in the Catholic Church?
Catholic Church in our time has been living from a patrimony, a legacy that is defined by the epoch that begins with Leo XIII in 1878, continues through the great popes of the 20th century, includes the Second Vatican Council, and now includes John Paul II and Benedict XVI as two popes of the Council who have provided an authoritative interpretation of the Council. But with the end of the pontificate of Benedict XVI, whenever that might be, that patrimony will have been completed. There's nobody coming along who will have shared in that experience the way Benedict XVI and John Paul II were the heirs of all of that.
Wiegel says it will take the world decades to digest the rich magisterium of Pope John Paul II, a holy man he was blessed to call not only his pope, but his friend. For Real to Real, I'm Terry Burgett.
And for more information on George Wiegel, you can find a link on our website at iobserve.org.